Alright, so the Americans will eventually join the war effort, and we do have to fight a two-front war because we're fighting not only against Japan, but also against Germany. And the Soviet Union has a big concern about the U.S. and when we're going to finally arrive in Europe, because they're very worried about the amount of losses that they are sustaining, because they are sustaining a lot of losses. And so the Soviet Union wanted us, the United States, to open up that second front to get a little bit of the pressure off of the Soviet Union. And so 1942 comes around and we're still not in Europe. 1943 rolls around and there's still no U.S. in Europe to open up the second front, so that way Germany has to fight on two fronts and make them weaker. 1940 finally shows up. Well, Stalin is going to remember this because he is absolutely convinced that the U.S. does it deliberately, that they allow this to happen in order to kill off millions of Soviets. And so that's going to be something that's kind of in the back of his mind in future. Now, the war for Europe, our war plans were basically drawn up by Churchill and FDR. And our top priority is to defeat Germany. Hitler was considered the #1 enemy of the U.S., and the Soviet Union needed a lot of help. And after we got rid of Germany, then we would focus on Japan. Japan was seen as sort of a secondary war, and it was put on the back burner. Well, then our second concern after that is that, okay, once we defeat Germany, how are we actually going to go about doing that and making sure that it's definite so they know that they have lost this war and we're not going to end up with a World War III because of mistakes that we make in World War II. So they really want to tie up all the ends. And their second concern is, okay, let's do unconditional surrender. And unconditional surrender means that we don't negotiate. There's no negotiations. We're not going to talk about it. This is what they have to agree to. And the second part of that is total victory, that we will completely destroy them and we will occupy them. We're going to make sure that our military is there watching and making sure that they're behaving themselves so that we don't have these same problems. Well, January of 1942, the first Americans are going to arrive in Europe, but they're not there to fight. They are actually arriving in Great Britain for training. And it's the first time that American soldiers had been there since the end of World War I. So they're not actually fighting. They don't open up a second front in order to fight against Germany and get that second front so that Germany has to fight two places and the Soviets are eased up on a little bit. So that doesn't actually happen. They do end up in Europe, but they're not there to fight. So where does the fighting take place? Well, we'll get to that. But let's see how things are going in the Soviet Union first. One of the major battles that takes place in the Soviet Union, and you can kind of see from this how bad it was for them, is the Battle of Stalingrad. Now, August of 1942, this battle is going to turn into a turning point in the East. This battle itself is going to last for several months, and the German offensive had been stalled partly because of the scorched earth policy, partly because of the Soviet winters. So there's a lot of different things going on. So because they're kind of stalled, Hitler decides to change tactics. He decides that he needs to seize the oil fields around Stalingrad because he needs to replenish his army. And secondly, he needs to capture Stalingrad itself. It's an industrial city along the Volga River, and if he can capture that, he can cut off supplies to the Red Army, which is the name of the Soviet army. And if he can cut off supplies to the Red Army, that's going to make them weaker, and maybe he can destroy them then. So that's kind of his idea. Well, by midsummer, the Luftwaffe begins to bomb the city of Stalingrad, just kind of softening it up for an invasion. And buildings are going to burn, and people are going to die, civilians are going to die, and supplies are burned up, and all kinds of stuff. And things get so bad there that the Soviet officers will actually recommend leaving the city because conditions are so poor. They were just going to let them have it. Well, the German soldiers attack, and they begin to conquer Stalingrad one house at a time because the Soviets were aggressively fighting back. And so they really seriously had to take it street by street and house by house. And the Soviets are going to counterattack, and both Hitler and Stalin are both going to order their armies to fight to the last man. That if you're the last man there, you're still fighting. So everybody's to fight to the death, basically, on both sides. And so that is going to account for the huge losses that they're going to endure. By February 2nd of 1943, the German army will be forced to surrender at Stalingrad. The losses suffered on the part of the Germans, they lost over 239,000 men. But the Soviets are going to suffer even more. 1.25 million are going to die in the Battle of Stalingrad. It is a huge loss of life for them, but they still end up winning this battle. And Germany, as a result, is going to begin to retreat from the Eastern Front. So it is a turning point because that's as far as the Germans get, and then they're forced back. And so we kind of see a turning point there. Is it a turning point in the war? No, not really. It's a turning point on the Eastern Front between Soviets and Germany. We'll see other turning points that come up as well. So like I said, what was the United States doing during all this time? What were they doing in 1942 and 43 and up until 1944 when they finally do get into Europe? Well, what they're doing is that they're focusing on North Africa. Remember, this is a worldwide war, and a lot of the fighting and a lot of territory that could be easily taken was in Africa. And so the goal was to take Italy, which was a German ally, and if we can get Italy, maybe that'll, punch a little hole in their balloon, and they'll slowly leak their strength out, kind of thing. Well, this goal to take Italy is called Operation Torch, and it is commanded by Dwight D. Eisenhower, who will later become a president. But the idea of Operation Torch is to take the soft underbelly of the German Reich, of the German Empire. And so they're going to target the island of Sicily and Italy. Now, this is not a direct attack on Germany, so it really doesn't help the Soviet Union. It doesn't open up a second front. But Hitler and Mussolini are both going to push a lot of troops into Africa in order to maintain control of the Suez Canal for trade purposes. So they want to keep it for that reason, and to inhibit or to make sure that certain boats don't get through to help out the British or to help out the Americans or to help out any allies. So while we are fighting in North Africa to try and take Italy and Sicily, we are going to endure some losses as well. Roughly 350,000 Axis powers will be killed or captured, and the Axis powers are Germany and Austria and Italy and Japan. And 18,500 American casualties will be suffered in the African campaign. And eventually we get to the point where we're ready to invade Sicily, and we need to capture this strategic island, and it's the Americans' job to do that. So we send in our troops to go take over this island. We need it in order to stage an invasion of Italy. So we have to have Sicily first. Once we capture Sicily, our next target is the city of Rome, the capital city of Italy. And we really don't want to destroy this city. And so instead what we're going to do is we're going to fly over and we're going to drop leaflets into the city that are going to explain that if the people give up, if they surrender, that we won't have to destroy their beautiful city, the homeland or the home of Christianity because the Pope lives there, all kinds of stuff. And so it works. This propaganda campaign works very well. And within a week, Mussolini's going to be forced to resign, and he's forced out of office. And the new prime minister, Badoglio, is going to sign an armistice ending military resistance. So an armistice is not a peace treaty. It just says that we agree not to shoot each other. So it's not a peace treaty. Instead, it's just saying I'm not going to shoot you guys if you don't shoot us anymore, so kind of thing. But Italy does fall at that point, and Germany is very angry at what they consider to be Italy's betrayal. Because you remember, in World War I, Italy switched sides, and it seems like that's what they're doing again, is they're switching sides again. They're giving in too easily. And so as the German troops are evacuating out of Italy, what they're going to do is they're going to burn books, they're going to burn down museums, any cultural items they can see as they leave, they destroy it as at the Italians saying, well, you didn't want your beautiful city destroyed, well, we're going to destroy your beautiful countryside as we leave. So how do you like that kind of thing? after the fall of Italy, the Tehran Conference is going to take place. And this is a meeting between Stalin, Roosevelt, and Churchill. And it's the first time that all three of them will meet in person. And what they're going to do at the Tehran Conference is they are going to talk about the coming invasion of Europe and opening up that second front like the Soviet Union wanted.